guys, welcome to the shop. I got some pretty neat stuff going on in here. We're going to set up the tailstock on the lathe. I'm going to show you how I do my setup. Everybody does it a little different, but I'm going to show you my method. It works for me, and it's pretty neat, and maybe a little different from the way others do it. So let's go in here, and I'll show you what I mean. Alright guys, now I consider this to be pretty basic information, and like I've said before, some of you will need it, some of you won't. But it's always neat to see the way that someone else does it. And I believe that I do it a little different than others. So we're going to set you up a little closer, and I'm going to bring you in and show you the way I do it. Alright guys, first thing that I do, and I've just got a grungy piece of stock here, nothing special, just a drop off of an old project. And instead of taking this chuck off and putting a center in the lathe and going through all the trouble with that, you know, and your chuck don't even have to be a great chuck in order for this to be a really accurate way. I just take the old stock and I put it in the lathe, tighten it up, and then I come in with my compound and turn a 60-degree angle on it. Alright guys, this is just a piece of stock that we got out of our scrap pile, and we save it for this purpose because you can see that it's already got a 60-degree point on it. But since we took it out of the chuck since last time I've used it, and I put it back in, and this old chuck runs out a couple thousandths, we're going to turn it again just to make sure that it's true with the rotation of the lathe. Just knock the burrs, any burrs off of it that may be, then knock the tip off usually. No reason for it to have a sharp point on it. And there we go. Now we've got a center that's as true basically as it gets with the rotation of the lathe. Alright guys, our goal here is just to align this tailstock, with the lathe. Here's the bar that we're going to be using. And it's just center drilled on both ends so we can put it between centers. I usually don't run a lathe dog or anything on this bar because just the friction of the centers and the tailstock is enough to keep it from, stopping. What I have here is 2 slugs of aluminum that I've pressed onto this bar, and they're about 1 foot apart. And, unless you're trying to test the complete accuracy of a lathe or, you're going to buy a lathe, there's no reason to turn the whole length of the bar. And I done this because I was tired of, just turning a little portion of the bar and then coming and turning another little portion of the bar, and then you get a bar that's all cut up. This way, once I cut these down, I can just push them off and press on some new ones. This is just 3/4 inch thick aluminum plate that I just pressed on and turned around. So nothing special here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this between centers, turn it, and measure the difference in between these two. And I've purposely, offset this tailstock just a little, just for video purposes, so we can see me adjust it and see how I do it. So I'm going to get this all set up, and I'm going to make a first test cut, and then we'll measure it, and then we'll see how much we need to adjust it. off measuring with just a pair of calipers, because they're going to be more than accurate enough to see where we're starting at. .099. 2.103. So what that tells me is that this is 4/1000ths of an inch bigger than this end. So we're cutting a taper that is bigger here and gets smaller towards the headstock. If we was to cut this whole bar, that's what you would see. So where this is 4/1000ths larger than the other end, that means we need to bring this tailstock over towards the cutter 2/1000ths of an inch. There's no, you don't do it, one for one. It's, you cut it in half and then move the tailstock accordingly. And what I do is, let's see, where's my indicator? I just take an indicator on a mag base and set it up against the tailstock and zero it. Preload it. This is a tenths indicator, and all I need is 4/1000ths or 2/1000ths of an inch towards me. So I'm going to preload this guy just a little. And now I have a starting point. It's 0. But in order to adjust this tailstock, I have to unlock it from the bed of the lathe. When I lock this down, it sandwiches. There's two components here. You got the top and then the bottom of the tailstock. There's a separation here, and you have two nuts. There's the mirror image of this side over here. And these two slide together. The top slides on the bottom from side to side. That's how you cut, tapers if you don't have a taper attachment. Long tapers anyway. Short tapers, of course, you use your compound. So what I need to do is I need to move this tailstock towards me 2/1000ths of an inch. I've zeroed my indicator. Now I need to unlock my tailstock. Use my wrench here. I need to unloosen this side over here just a little. Doesn't take much. Sometimes you got to run back and forth 2 or 3 times. Tighten this side. Sometimes a lead hammer. Loosen this side a little more. You want to keep these two, there's two nuts here, and you want to keep them both tight, and you want to try to adjust them together. That way, every time you loosen the lock here, the tailstock doesn't shift on you. So we've come over 1/1000ths. And there's 2. You lock it back down, make sure we're tight, and we'll run another test cut. Okay, let's measure again. .094. .095. So in one shot, we were off 4/1000ths. So in one shot, using the test indicator, we got within 5/10ths, which is pretty good, and probably good enough for the job considering that that's over a foot in length. It's probably about 13 inches between those two centers, or two aluminum pucks. Now if you were doing a smaller job on the lathe, you want to it needs to be within the accuracy of the job that you're doing, or within the specs of the job. If you're doing a short taper, get you a little short bar and turn the whole thing. But if you want to set it up, the entire length, get you a long bar. A lot of these old lathes are wore in the, bedway as far as the tailstock, and I know this one is. So anytime that I move it, up, if I had to move this up a foot, I would check it if I was doing a job that required, a high amount of precision. But for the general jobs around here, I use this bar, and it gets me more than close enough. I'll get you a better shot over top of the tailstock. That way you can see the two bolts that I'm talking about. Most of you will know, but I want to make it a little clearer if I can. Alright guys, you're looking down the bed of the lathe, and here's the two bolts I was talking about. This is the one you've seen from the front of the lathe, and this is the one on the reverse side. They're both exactly the same thing, and they do the same thing. But in order to keep this, to where it doesn't get loose when you loosen the tailstock or unlock it from the bed, both of these nuts or bolts need to be pushing in and tight against each other. So when you loosen one, tighten the other at the same time if you can. And just don't guess when you're setting one of these up. Make sure to use a test indicator or a dial indicator. It'll cut your time in half. You could chase this all day long if you wanted to just bump it around and take test cuts. I used to do it that way, and it took forever. If you use a test indicator on the ram of the tailstock, you'll cut your time in half, I guarantee it. Alright guys, you've seen it. We got it within a half a thousandths, over about 13 inches in one shot. We measured it with the calipers, but if we wanted to get closer than that, we'd bring out the mics, and from this point on, that's what I would do. Measure it with mics, and just barely tweak the bolts. To set up a test indicator on it, that way you're not over adjusting, because all we need to adjust is 2.5 tenths. It's real easy with these coarse bolts to go over, or to go too much or too little. So you have to go slow and easy once you get up to this point. And sometimes you can chase your tail trying to get it to zero. But, if you want a precision, setup, you got to use more precision instruments. But for this demonstration, I think that was good enough. And I really want you guys to understand it. And if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. I try to talk to everybody, and I try to, explain everything that I can as clear as I can. I really appreciate you watching. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Click on my little guy. He'll take you directly to my channel. There you can subscribe. And hit the bell so you'll know when I upload a new video. I'm new to the YouTube, so sometimes my schedule's a little messed up and I work a full-time job. So sometimes, who knows when we'll get it up. But we try our best. So click on the little bell to get notified. Click on my little guy here to subscribe. And thanks very much. I'll see you next time.